Technology in sport is absolutely nothing new, but I want to sort of dive straight in here and talk about one type of technology we really want to have a solid understanding of, and that's the concept of equipment, not surprisingly, of course. And I just want to draw your attention to certain things that I think might be kind of interesting. Think about tennis rackets. You guys, what are you guys? You're 17, 18, wherever you are. Have you ever held 1970s or 80s tennis rackets? The ones I played with first, well, they were made of wood and they were kind of heavy and you couldn't really hit the ball very hard. And look what's changed. Look at the change in tennis rackets over time. Now, I'm going to spell rackets in this format for today, just for a bit of consistency. But obviously use your CQU spelling if you prefer. Now then, I also want to bring attention to something like this. We've got here things like electronic starting blocks and finishing pads for that matter. Electronic starting blocks. Think about how they, as a form of equipment, in this case a swimming pool, could be athletics obviously, but they maximize the efficiency of the timing. It's not about a time judge's eye as they see someone twitch or move from the block. It's actually pressure based, and we'll come back to force plates in a second, but it's actually pressure based and therefore it's absolutely exact. So brilliant. Now we also want to think about things like timing devices. I've got an example here. Look at this one here. The timing devices. This is like a speed gun and photo finish gun and this sort of thing. They make, obviously, a bit like starting blocks, more accuracy in the measurement of performance. I've also put in here the idea of, you see the feet here, these are what are called force plates. So yes, this lifter knows that he is lifting whatever he's lifting on the end, whatever plates he's lifting, but he can measure not only the total force applying through his feet to the ground, but actually the direction of that force that allows him to monitor technique as well. So a really good example of that. And folks, just generally think about any sort of equipment that improves safety. That obviously could be something you use, it could be a gum shield, it could be protective equipment like padding and so on, it could be padding around posts that you might run into, etc, etc. Lots of technology improves equipment, improves safety. Now I want to move on for equipment and I want to think about clothing. Now we could talk endlessly here about clothing, but I won't. I will talk specifically. I'd like to bring your attention to this one first of all. This is what we would refer to as compression clothing. Now compression clothing is used for a number of purposes, but I'm going to make a claim that its probably primary use is for recovery. Now obviously people wear it, I'm going to come to that in a second, during performance, but recovery, it seems to aid recovery and aid in blood flow. It produces sort of tension, improves the tone of muscle, skeletal muscle, and helps with venous return. So that seems fairly positive. Also, have a look at things like cycling clothing. Here you go. This is maybe what we'd refer to as lycra technology. That is really good for air and water resistance. Okay, so really reduces things like drag through the air. Okay, so that becomes less and less and less. Also, have a look. Same sort of notion here. We've got the laser suits. These now banned in swimming, but examples. These whole body suits that again reduce drag. They're designed around shark skin for the perfect movement through the water. And I've got two other examples that I haven't got images for. I want to mention wicking clothing. If you're not sure what wicking clothing is, you probably own some of this. It's kind of what is known as technical clothing, and you sort of thing you might buy in a millet shop or something like that, and you do it for you wear it for mountain walking because it moves the sweat away from the skin and gets rid of that moisture. That's what we mean by wicking. And also, can I mention again the idea of safety clothing? Okay, safety clothing. Now there's all kinds of versions of what that could be, but technology around safety and clothing is something you should bear in mind as well. So let's keep this conversation going. I want to talk about footwear. A couple of really nice examples I've got here. Obviously, use those from your sports. We could simply be talking about running spikes, running shoes, football boots, this sort of thing. But I want you to notice, for example, the two types I've got here. I've got the Vivo Barefoot here. Let me see if I can spell that correctly. The Vivo Barefoot shoes here, relatively modern, very popular at the moment as I record this video. And the idea is this sort of flat sole that allows performers to run or work out in the gym or weightlift in a more natural posture. What about things like our Nike Alpha Fly? Let me put it in here. Yellow, please. Let's go for our Nike Alpha Fly. Now, I'm not here to try and sell you shoes, but these shoes help show you here achieve a marathon below 2 hours. Also, think about other examples you could chuck into the mix here as well. You could be talking about sort of a GPS tracker in the shoe. You could be talking here about, yeah, as I said before, spikes. You could be talking here about ankle supported shoes. There's so many different varieties that I won't go into too much detail. Use those that you think are most important to you and maybe are relevant in your particular sporting experience. Now, I also want to talk about surfaces. So we'll summarize this as surfaces here. A couple of examples. Here we've got what we would call all weather. I believe that's a 4G example I've got there. But also notice, and I might be wrong about this, but I think what it shows in the image is we've even got a hybrid surface there. And what we mean by hybrid is some of it is artificial and some of it is grass. Now, there are lots and lots of elite sport surfaces now do that exact process. So it's one to look out for. The other one I want to mention to you what we refer to as tartan running tracks. Okay, now you will know them as running tracks, but what we mean here is this sort of high grip, nice springy, rebounding surface. Those surfaces maximise, in this case, things like running pace and ground reaction forces and that kind of stuff. Now, let's take this a little bit further. I want to specifically talk about facilities. Now, obviously, facilities will incorporate performance surfaces as well, but here, have a look at this one. This is the EIS, the English Institute of Sport, and I believe if I've chosen the right photograph, we've got here the National Water Sports Centre. Water Sports Centre in Nottingham, or just outside Nottingham. And you see here it's got Olympic rowing. It's got, I believe this here is a canoe slalom. I'm not sure what they use these ponds for, but that'll be for other purposes as well. Notice here we've got wind tunnels to measure air resistance, in this case of what appears to be a track bike, I believe it is, or a road bike. That's really important. But notice generally our facilities become very, very sport specific. We have a whole network in England of English institutes of sports for different sports. Let me think of some. So yeah, so we've got water sports down up in the Midlands in Nottingham. We've got in Weymouth the sailing centre. Which ones can I not think of? Cycling up in Manchester. There's all. I think there's 11. Fact check that one for me because I didn't think about it before. I just said it just now. Now, I also want to finish off on two final areas. I want to talk about cameras. Now, that's a fairly obvious one. And what have we got here with cameras? We've got the idea here of photo finish. Okay, so this here, I actually use this image above it as well. This here is photo finish, making sure that we get that sort of accuracy on the line. Furthermore, we could be talking about video replay. Okay, think about VAR in football or TMO in rugby as well. So we've actually got video replay. We also get in lots of sports, I haven't got an image of it here, what we call gait analysis. Now, if you're not sure what gait is, it's how the foot strikes the ground when someone is running. It's a bit like using a force plate, but without a force plate. I'll come back to that in a second. So we've got those sorts of things as well. But a couple of things that are really good about modern cameras is they have a very high frame rate. So remember, a video is a series of still images linked together. So if you have a very high frame rate, something like 100 FPS, 100 frames per second, that camera is taking 100 still photos a second and streaming them together to make a very, very kind of smooth moving image, which can be broken down into 100 parts per second. Okay, so that's what we're talking about there. But also, I want to talk about player analysis. Now, I've chosen the example of a VO or VO here. You notice our camera, it is recording this whole performance, but it can track this person everywhere that person goes, and it does not need to be operated by anyone else. So a really good example. Now, finishing this off, last one, we have the idea of software. Okay, so software itself is a form of technology. Trust me, I designed the stuff. Anyway, what have we got here? Well, we've got software for biomechanical analysis. Okay, so software programs that will allow the physics of a performance to be measured very, very intricately. We've got things like motion tracking software, motion trackers. We've got things like GPS software, or software that can integrate with GPS to track the speeds, this sort of thing here. I'm sure you've seen these in lots of sporting examples. Now, these are all just examples. You, by all means, use others, pick some from your own sport, but that hopefully will give us a nice introduction to the use of technology in sport. Cheers.